What's up, brother?
What's going on, bud?
Dude, so I guess we got to tell everybody about what's happening this spring, a couple of pretty exciting things.
Yeah, super excited with, with the news you're about to give out.
Yeah, right? So I guess the first thing that we're going to announce is that we have a new relationship with Schedulicity, the Schedulicity app, which is a scheduling app. And we've been using it for a couple of weeks now. So
yeah, it's doing everything that I that my previous app was missing. And I'm totally digging everything that, I'm allowed to do in it.
Exactly. It's pretty cool. I mean, I suggest anybody that's looking for a scheduling app for any kind of scheduling to go look at it. From our side, it's just been so cool and so easy to use, really. And even our clients are starting to use it now, and they're really digging just the ease to make online appointments.
Yeah, all my clients, you know what I mean? They're in total control of making their own appointment with me. Mm-hmm. And they really, there's a big, huge shout out. They love it.
Yeah. What's pretty cool about it too is, I haven't experienced it too much, but, just reading the literature and stuff about it is how if you have a hole in your book, they'll actually fill it. So like it could be a new client or whatever. So the app is actually set up like a community. So they can, they can fill your book for you, right?
Yeah. The whole marketing part of it, to help you market your business is pretty brilliant. Actually, it's pretty genius.
It's pretty cool.
Especially because, a lot of us that move to a suite, we're just starting out learning how to, operate our own business. So
right.
They have these things in place to really help you grow your business.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm also, again, I haven't done it yet, but reading it, I can't wait for is, hey, you can actually put products on sale. And as your clients book their appointment, it'll let them know that it's on sale. And by the way, they can buy it even before they come into the shop, and then you just hand it to them and send them on their way. So I'm pretty excited about trying that option out. I can't wait till some of the spring deals start coming out so we can start implementing those.
Yeah, and that's not the only thing that's exciting that's happening with us.
I know. Well, officially what we did is we signed an ambassadorship. So we're doing like an ambassadorship, and two things that we're super excited to announce is one is that the ambassadorship is with our dear friend Presley Poe.
Yep.
And so Presley's going to be on the ambassadorship as well. And that Schedulicity is sponsoring our show that we're doing with Presley Poe in Frederick, Maryland on
April 7th.
On April 7th. So on April 7th, we're doing a really cool hair show. It's going to have Presley Poe and the newly awarded
NAHA Award winner.
That's right.
Blush and Mane that everybody knows on Instagram.
And God, her work's incredible.
Yeah.
And she's teaming up with Updo Guru, Casey Powell, and Casey's amazing too. And they're actually going to do a class together as well. So on April 8th, they're going to have a class, like an Updo class.
We have 3 classes going on April 8th. And you can learn more about that at PresleyPoeandFriends.com. But dude, that's going to be a killer class.
Yes, it is. I mean, today on Instagram, somebody was like, "It's going to be an epic hair weekend," and it's so cool that we can that we're kind of bringing it to Maryland.
Yeah, and we get to be a part of it and get to. I'm just so excited. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. But let's drop a couple more names. So we got Presley Poe, we got Blush and Mane. Yep. We got Updo Guru. We got from Project Runway,
Lynn Nugent.
We got Lynn Nugent, and we got
Miss Jackie Davis.
Miss Jackie Davis. So Jackie was on the podcast too, so definitely listen to that. But
and to me, just as cool is we got Ben Mullen
as our MC.
Oh my God, yeah, he's MCing the whole thing, and that guy's a riot. And anybody who knows Ben Mullen, he has the Ben Mullen Project. If you ever wanted to do public speaking, he has the class to take.
100%. I mean, like if you ever want to present in front of a stage or even present in front of your salon staff or whatever. I mean, Ben's got this just this incredible program.
Also, we have hashtag Presley Poe that Cosmoprof is underwriting for us, which has been fantastic. The outreach for that has been incredible.
Yeah, it sure has. I mean, just the entries have been incredible, right? So I know Presley's kind of nervous because she got to make a pick.
Yep.
She actually called me and was like, "Oh, I don't know what to do. There's so many great entries here." But I mean, again, let's just thank Cosmoprof Beauty and Megan Gentz. Really, let's just thank them a lot for supporting this.
Yeah. Dude, I am so stoked.
You know what I'm stoked about?
What's that?
About saying it.
Go ahead.
Can I say it? Is it time? Is it time? Is it time? Is it time? So for the very, very first time, we'd like to Hairdustry and Schedulicity presents Your Day Off podcast. Hey, welcome to your day off. My name is Corey. And of course, I sit with my best bud, Tony. What's up, Tony?
What's up, brother? Another day, man. Another podcast.
Another day. So I'm gonna go.
Go.
So we met today's guest. We met her in LA, and we were I'll speak for me. I won't speak for you, but it was certainly an intimidating room that we were in. And I'm just really excited that we were able to kind of meet her and to kind of like slap fives with her a little bit. And then today she's coming on the podcast to tell us a little bit about her story.
Yeah, what she's doing is pretty ridiculous. It's funny because before we went live here, I'm already thinking about podcast number 2 and number 3 because she's doing so much amazing stuff that we're not going to be able to cover it all, but we'll definitely get into her story.
It definitely will. I mean, it's amazing to me because 1, she's so young, but 2, she's making such an incredible impact, generally or broadly speaking, over our entire industry. And I'm just really, really super excited to bring her in.
You said speaking, and she definitely speaks our language, right? It's all about giving back to our industry. Yeah, she's definitely like-minded after her own heart.
So I think we should introduce her instead of like just calling her, right?
Her. I agree.
So listen, if you don't follow this woman on Instagram, you must follow this woman on Instagram. Today, we're super, super excited. By the way, why do all hairdressers say that? Super excited, but we are super excited to bring in Jamie Dana, hairstylist, or it's at Jamie Dana, hairstylist on Instagram. And if I mess that up, I'm sure Jamie's going to correct me on there.
You're better at that, though.
Am I?
Yeah.
I don't get in my own way anymore.
It's an easy last name to remember, too.
That's true, exactly. So, Miss Jamie Dana, welcome to your day off.
Hey, how are you guys? I am so excited to be here. I say that all the time. My husband makes fun of me. He's like, you say that way too often. And so you guys proved the point right there.
I mean, we do it like everyone does. Like every time someone, like if you look at like their live or something, it always starts off with like, we're super excited. And I'm not even making fun of anybody. It's just an observation that like, totally. Yeah, we're all just like super excited.
When we were in LA, it was Danny Tiger. She was making fun of me. She's like, you know what I mean? I guess I say, you know what I mean on the podcast all the time.
Oh, that's awesome.
So when I saw her, she goes, you know what I mean? Yes, I do.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
That was so Jamie, actually, before we kind of get into it, like, dude, what we met in LA. We met at the Salon Digital Summit, which was put on by Modern Salon. So how'd you kind of find your way there?
So I got asked actually by Eric Taylor, and it's funny because I didn't think that I was going to be asked to be a part of it at all. And so Eric Taylor, who is from Salon Republic, the founder of Salon Republic, he asked me to be on a panel. And it's funny because him and I have had a relationship. We've kind of just connected through the industry and through Instagram and stuff. So he has a podcast. I've been on his podcast before. But anyways, him and I just talked and he was like, hey, I'd love for you to be on my panel. And then he told me the other people that were going to be on the panel as well. And it was Rihanna Capri and Nikki Lee of 901. And then another woman who has a social media consulting agency. And then there's little old me like on this panel. And I was like, are you sure? Like you want me to be on it too? And so I was super flattered. So yeah, that's how I found my way there. But yeah, definitely didn't feel like I fit in with everybody else, but I felt very honored.
Like how we felt.
You felt like we did.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So the Salon Digital Summit, it's I mean, I guess the best way to kind of explain it, it was a room full of like quote unquote influencers, and
yeah.
For Tony and I, like the room, including yourself, like the room is filled with 100,000 follower people, you know what I mean? And then there's Tony and I with our 3,000 followers. We certainly didn't feel like we should have been in that room at all. And, for us, I mean, it is quite intimidating.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think that we all think that everyone is way ahead of us and like has way more followers. And you're like, oh, they must have X amount of followers. But in reality, I think a lot of people are way, not at that level than where we think. So even though you guys probably felt that way in that room, it wasn't that way. It just feels like it, and I think that's true. It's like you start to look at everybody else and what they're doing,
What made us feel different about it is when Corey and I, before we got on stage to do our live podcast, we were making jokes. Corey's like, I want to see how, who's heard of the podcast. And I was going to say, I see a couple in the back. And then when he started playing our theme song and start introducing us and the love and the ovation, the love we received from the crowd was kind of confirmation. Like, you know what, this is
totally.
Be all right.
We'll be all right here,
Yeah.
It was actually pretty
exactly.
cool. It was No, we all have our own influence, I guess, right? I guess that's it.
And that's the thing, I think people don't realize is like, sometimes you can have such an impact and influence, even at a smaller follower count or, smaller like number. It doesn't necessarily have to be 100,000, you can still be making an impact. And you guys have shown that too. So I think that's super cool.
Well, thanks, Jamie. Well,
Yeah.
let's get into Jamie. Enough about us and enough about the modern salon thing. Jamie, like, where are you from, man? Where'd you grow up?
So I'm from Orange County, California, so Southern California. I grew up there my whole life, and I was actually homeschooled my whole life, which is super funny. So I grew up homeschool nerd. I turned out okay, though. I think I wasn't too, nerdy. But yeah, so I grew up in Southern California, and I basically was able to, because I was homeschooled, was able to graduate high school at 16. And it was awesome. My mom was kind of like, well, what do you want to do with your life? And kind of when I was like 12, kind of thinking about like career moves or like, hey, what do I want to be when I grow up? I originally wanted to go into like the fashion industry and do stuff like that. I think Project Runway had just come out at the time. And so, I was super into that. And I was like, I want to be a fashion designer. And I started to kind of like sketch and draw. And I realized that I cannot draw worth beans. And I'm also not great at just coming up with stuff on my own. And so I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. And my mom was like, well, why don't you do something like hair school? And I was like, yeah, I mean, that could be cool. And she was like, like you could always, at least, even if you didn't do it as a living, like you could always cut your kids' hair or like your husband's hair. And, and I was like, okay, like that's a good idea. And it's funny because my husband's actually bald, so he has no hair. He does have an epic beard, so I do cut that. And we don't want kids. So ironic enough, that didn't work out. But anyways, so I graduated high school at 16. Went straight to beauty school when I was 16, 17, and then started right in the industry at 17. So I came out super fresh, really young. And it was hard because a lot of times, clients would sit in my chair and they're like, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm 17, and they're like, how long have you been doing this? And I'm like, a year, totally like trying to just make it work. And so I worked at a regular salon. I assisted, I went to commission, rental, and I was about at a salon for 5 years. And this salon, unfortunately, just became really toxic over time. The owner just basically was really passive aggressive and, kind of when leadership starts out kind of in a toxic, negative energy, it trickles down to the other stylists and the other people around. So, back room became a place of complaining and bitching and talking about each other and talking about clients in such a negative light. And so I knew that I needed to kind of move on and go from there. So I started to look for spaces in my area. Well, Southern California is super expensive. So real estate's crazy expensive, and there's not a lot of real estate available, especially in a cool area. I mean, they have spaces in like shopping centers, but that's not really where I wanted to be. So I started to look around, and I actually looked for a space for about 2 years. Before I was able to leave my salon. And this was kind of at the time where I knew I needed to leave. I knew I needed to find a space, but there just wasn't a lot out there. So I ended up
hold on, Jay. How did you like here you're this 17, 18-year-old kid and like you knew to play the slow game. Where at that age,
so
everything at that age, everything is like, you're
just trying
reactive.
to catch up.
You're just reactive,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Well, I think for me, being homeschooled definitely helped. There's like something just different about it. And I've always been an old soul. Like at 15, I was just like an old soul. And I actually got married at 18. So my life started really, really early. And I think being homeschooled definitely helps. You just grow up in a different manner. You have to like learn how to talk to adults. And like, well, kids are still in high school. They don't know how to speak to adults. I don't know. So
right.
I think that helped. But yeah, I think just being an old soul and I don't know.
So how old are you right now looking at this spot?
So I was, let's see here, like 22, 23 at this point. So yeah, probably 22. Yeah. And so, I'm looking for a space, trying to figure out what that looks like. I knew my business behind the chair was strong enough to go out on my own because I was renting my chair in the salon at that point. So I felt confident enough that like enough of my clients would come with me. And I had built a lot of my clientele myself. It wasn't like I had got a lot of clientele from the salon. Where the salon was in a horrible location for walk-ins. So it's not like I really got fed a lot. I built my business myself, which again was helpful when I knew I was going to leave, that I wasn't going to just be like relying on the salon's clientele.
Right.
So I ended up finding a Phoenix salon suite, and that's kind of when the salon suite concept first kind of came about. And so, yeah, I found a salon suite and moved in there. And that wasn't my ideal location at the time, but it was like in the right area for where I wanted to be. And honestly, once I moved there, that's really when my business started to explode. That's when kind of Instagram was kicking off. And I mean, Instagram had been around for a little bit. And I was kind of on it like at the salon that I was at. But again, I was not around like-minded people. They were negative. They would like look at me taking photos of my clients for Instagram and like make fun of me, or make fun of me for doing the new trends like the ombre and the balayage and things like that. So anyways,
well, before we how did you kind of work through that? Again, I mean, you're young, you're impressionable. I mean, how did I there's no way at 20 years old that I wouldn't have been affected by the people goofing on me than being forward thinking. Like,
I mean,
I bet we'll go back to homeschooled. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think for me, like, it was one of those things where I just kind of was like, this is what I know is right. And this is what I know that I need to do. Like, I want to put myself out there on Instagram. I had seen other people start to grow on Instagram. And this is, again, in the early days of when Instagram was kind of breaking out in the hair industry. It's when independent education was starting to come out. I mean, things like Butterfly Circus had just come out, and there were more independent educators. And I think at that point I was like, I could foresee myself going into education, but I knew that I needed to really kind of create a brand for myself and a name for myself. And so, yeah, like as much as they wanted to make fun of me, I was like, I don't really care what you think, because where they were at in their business was not anywhere that I wanted to be. I wanted to be way further and beyond that. And so I was like, well, you're not doing it right in my eyes anyways. So I don't really care what you think, you know?
Right.
And I think
speak a lot about your mom and dad. I mean, to give you that type of confidence as a young woman, you know what I mean? That's pretty impressive, because, like, you know, we went to public schools and we got picked on and we got bullied. So maybe that's why we cared a little bit more. But your mom and dad instilled, you know, something special in you in order to stand up at that young age to fight against
criticism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So actually in beauty school, so when I was 16, 17, I'm in beauty school, and I actually got bullied by one of the instructors there. And it was crazy. It was like it was the most insane thing that like ever happened. She was like totally picking on me. And this like an instructor at beauty school who's like supposed to be teaching you and helping you start out your career. And it got so bad that I actually got her fired. So yeah, that's a whole nother story, but it was just crazy. One of those things where, so I actually did really have my first experience of getting like bullied in beauty school. There was quite a few students that didn't like me because I was a teacher's pet, you know, like they'd ask a question, I had the answer. Like, I don't know, I love having the answer. And so definitely people made fun of me for that, you know, the kids that were slacking off and didn't really care. So I did get a big taste of that in beauty school. But I think things like that kind of helped me, again, make me more confident of like, no, they're not where I want to be. Like, I don't want to be these kids goofing off. So I'm going to like do the opposite, and I'm going to just push past and like, I don't really care what they think. And that's just kind of been the thing that's kept me even to this day. I mean, like I get hater comments, especially like on things like YouTube. I mean, I talk about this like every day. Like I get a hater comment and it's just like, okay. And you have to just keep pushing through, because again, those people aren't where you want to be, and you have to be doing something right in order for people to make fun of you. That's the only reason why they're doing it, because they're not confident in themselves.
That's the takeaway right there, right?
Beautiful.
That's a tweetable. No. It's true. I think those things are the things that really help kind of push you and grow you through life. And I'm thankful for those experiences, even though they kind of sucked in the moment. You know, I'm thankful for them in the end.
I was nowhere near that at that age.
No way. No way. I was looking for the room, not to go like fight against the room. I'd have been the one goofing on Jamie.
Right.
Know?
Yeah.
You like guys would be the ones making fun of me. Yeah, exactly.
And then Corey would have got fired.
Yeah,
Where's
exactly.
Corey?
Yeah, he was here yesterday. Exactly.
Jamie got him fired.
Jamie, come on, man. I thought we were friends, buddy.
Right?
You spoke about your husband earlier. When did you meet your husband?
Okay, so this is a crazy story. We don't talk about this a lot, but so my husband and I actually used to do musical theater. And so again, me being homeschooled, I had to do outside activities and stuff. So I wasn't like totally socially inept, right? So I started to do musical theater at like a community theater. So it wasn't involved with the school or anything. It just was like a local community theater. And my husband was there. And obviously at the time, he was there and I was there. And so I actually met him when I was like 15, 16. And the crazy thing is, my husband is actually 18 years older than me. So a lot of people, their minds just probably got blown right now. And he has a big beard, so you don't really know that he's that much older than I am. And I think because I'm an old soul and he's not an old soul, we just kind of like met in the middle. So we became really good friends at that point and just started kind of hanging out. And we basically got engaged right when I turned 18. And my family was super supportive. His family was super supportive. And it just was like one of those things where it was meant to be. And it's crazy because when I was younger, I was like, I'm going to be a career woman. Like, I'm not going to get married till I'm like 35. Like, I don't want to be tied down. And lo and behold, I got married at 18. So
lo and behold, she got tied down at 18.
yeah, the complete opposite of and it's so funny too, because I had always said like, I am never going to marry my first boyfriend. That is crazy. Like, I want to date around. I want to have fun. And again, never say never, because you don't know what's going to happen.
When it's right, it's right.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we've been married for 7.5, almost 8 years. So yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you started working at the Phoenix Salon, right? And then what was that experience like?
So I honestly loved it. It was right for me. And I don't think that it's right for everybody. For me, I really like just being one-on-one with my clients, and I didn't need all the other stylists around me. I'm an introvert, so which again, a lot of people find surprising. I'm an extroverted introvert. So for me, I actually get a lot of my recharging by being alone. So working in a suite was a great environment for me. I don't feed a lot of energy off of people. In fact, people actually drain me. And so I loved being in a suite, and it was great because I could go next door and say hi to my neighbor or go talk to the girl, in the suite next to me if I needed to. But ultimately I was just with my clients by myself. So I really liked it. And that's really when my business started to explode. I think because I was able to brand myself the way that I wanted to, I wasn't around that negativity anymore. And that's, again, kind of when Instagram was in the early stages of really pushing people out there. So I started to utilize Instagram to grow my business. I knew that I needed more clients because I did lose quite a few moving and just going out of my own. And so that's when I started to really utilize Instagram to grow my business. And it got to the point where I think within a matter of 6 months, I had, been booked a couple days a week. I definitely had holes in my schedule. I wasn't like fully booked out. It would be like, oh yeah, I have a couple appointments available next week, and they would slowly fill in type thing. And in a matter of 6 months, it was to the point where I was booked out 2 months in advance. I was gaining like 2 to 3 clients a week, like just from Instagram, sometimes up to like 5 new clients a week from Instagram. And so that's like when I was like, okay, this is where it's at. And they weren't just like random clients, like walk-ins, they were actual clients that found my work, loved what I did, were willing to pay my prices, were willing to wait 2 months to get in to see me. And they were dream clients, really. They weren't root touch-ups and old lady blow dries, they were like people I wanted to hang out with, and they were willing to pay my prices, which was huge, So
that's incredible. So what were you doing like early on Instagram, like to set yourself apart from what were you doing?
So at the time, there was definitely a lot less people on Instagram, so that helped. But honestly, it was just putting out the right content to the right people. And so knowing how to speak to those dream clients, knowing what kind of content they wanted to see, knowing what kind of photos they wanted to see, what kind of captions spoke to them, and what kind of captions actually converted them into actual clients to book with me, I think was huge. And knowing exactly who my dream client was and speaking to them helped a lot versus just posting up my work and just hoping for God that somebody, booked an appointment with me. It definitely helped kind of having that targeted message to them.
So you knew the type of clientele that you wanted. And
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And at the time it was like balayage, blonde clients. And that service was still relatively new at the time. And I knew like I wanted young clients. I wanted clients that were willing to trust me with their hair, that were willing to try new things, that, you know, would allow me to play with their hair a little bit more, allow me to get photos for them for Instagram, you know, things like that. So that definitely helped. But yeah, having that targeted message and again, putting content out there that I knew that would convert them into actual clients.
That's amazing. I mean, she's kind of like, I want to get there. I kind of want to get there a little slow, but like she's changed, and I might be speaking for you, Jamie. So tell me to shut up.
That's okay.
But like she changed her was it A to B market, and now she's like B to B, right? So now she's speaking to the hairdresser. So I'm interested in like how her messaging or how her context has changed. So now she's attracting like hairdressers, and those become her clients as opposed to like clients. That
Yeah,
want to do
I
hair.
mean, there's got to be a curve to it, right? Because you're approaching Instagram one way to build this business,
Mhm.
and then it curves in a completely different clientele, but still the same social media path to
To
bring in
find
your
right,
business, right?
exactly. But we'll get there. So how do we get from Phoenix, and then like I'm so intrigued about when you were like, take this job and shove it. So did that happen?
Yeah. So
Well, tell
there's
us the
there's
story. Go ahead.
quite a bit that happened in between there. So so even when I was actually at my Phoenix, I again, like I said, Butterfly Circus had come around. Independent education was just starting. A lot of independent educators were traveling the country and going from salon to salon, and at the time they were posting this on Instagram, and I was like, that looks so cool, like I want to do something like that. And I knew early on in my career that I wanted to eventually go into education, and my original goal when I was like, well, I don't want to be behind the chair when I'm like 50 years old, so I'll just go and like teach at a beauty school. Like that was like always just my backup plan, or I'll be a rep for a company. And I always thought that that was like as far as I was ever going to get in education. But I knew that I probably didn't want to work for a brand and work my way up in the corporate structure of a brand. So when independent education started to really make waves in the industry, I was like, that's really cool that people can, you know, do their own thing, support the products that they want to support, talk about what they want to talk about, and really have this like audience of people that care. And so I saw that. I was like, that's super cool. But I also knew that I didn't want to be going from salon to salon, because eventually you're going to burn out and you could only reach so many people doing that. And so I was like, how is a way that I could take education to more people, help more people grow their business without having to travel around the country? And that's when I really started to get introduced into like the online marketing space of online courses and webinars and just online education in general, not in our industry, but outside of our industry. And I also thought that everyone was teaching balayage and braiding and all of the blonde classes. It was mostly like balayage and ombre at the time. And I was like, I can't go teach what everybody else is teaching, because what's going to make me stand out? And so I was like, what is something that's lacking in our industry? And at the time, it was business education. No one was talking about business education. And I was like, there's a real need for that. I feel like hairstylists need to learn how to run their business. I don't care if you can do the best balayage or the best ombre or best whatever. If you don't know how to market yourself and you don't know how to run a successful business, you're never going to see that success. Even you could be the best colorist in the world. And so I decided that I was going to teach more business education, and that was going to be the thing that I went into. And I started working with a business coach, and he was like, okay, well, let's break it down. Like, if you can't just teach everything to everyone, like, what are you going to focus on? And I was like, well, honestly, like, I've grown my business with Instagram. I think it's where it's going. I think it's where it needs to go. And I would love to focus on that. And I know a lot about it. And he was like, all right, let's dive in. And so this was in like early 2016. I started to just kind of create like content that was for the hairstylist, that was how to utilize Instagram to grow your business. And in July of 2016, I actually launched my online course, which is called Oh Hot Gram. And that has transitioned over the years as well. But that was like my first deep dive into education. And it was one of those things where at the time I didn't think I was an educator. And in fact, I had another educator reach out to me and they were like, wow, you're such an amazing educator. And I was like, what? I guess. Okay. Like, there was confirmation for me, like, whoa, you actually are an educator. And I was like, okay, I guess I am. And so,
so in those early years though, like, so you were still doing hair behind the chair. So
yeah,
you were doing posts that were both like client focused as well, or gaining client focused as well as gaining like hairdresser support. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I get this question a lot because there's a lot of people that have been growing their business and trying to, grow their business behind the chair, but they're wanting to transition into educator. Like, how do you balance the two? So it can be tricky, but it totally can be done. And so like what I decided when I was figuring out if I wanted to, gear my posts towards hairstylists or clients, at the time I was definitely talking to both on my page. So I would try to find either like a common ground with my posts. So basically what I did was my captions, I just made them educational. So if I posted a photo of, a balayage or something, I could talk about the service and what I did, or maybe the formula or the technique, but also still gear it towards clients of like why they would still want to come see me to get their balayage done, and to the hairdresser, why they care to follow me. So it can totally be done. There's definitely a trick to it. But it's usually in your captions and just the content that you're educating, no matter who you're educating, your clients or other hairstylists as well.
So you're Instagram bilingual.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. You're ambidextrous. You're sharing both sides. And so, yeah, it can totally be done. So anyways, yeah, you can definitely talk to both hairstylists and clients at the same time. I just think it depends on. My question to you would be, what is more important? Do you want to grow your business behind the chair, or do you want to grow your educational business? If it's 50-50, then split your posts 50-50, 50% towards clients, 50% towards hairstylists. If you want to grow maybe your educational business a little bit more, maybe your behind the chair clientele is doing well, you don't need to put as much effort and, effort into it, I guess, then I would say do 75% of your posts towards hairstylists and the other 25% towards clients. And I started to do that. And if you scroll way down through my page, you can see that where I was about 50-50. Then I started to transition a little bit more into hairstylists, less clients, because behind the chair was doing really well.
I'm going to slow you down a little bit. So
yeah,
when you say like it's 50-50, you're putting up one picture, but you're talking to both audiences, or each post is focused on another audience?
So it depended. I mean, it kind of depended on the content that it was. So sometimes it would be actually a one post split 50-50, like talking about two hairstylists. This is the formula that I use. And, like I would usually start out the caption, something about, the client, that like maybe a story about the client. So I would say something like, let's say it's a blonde balayage photo. I'd say, this is my client, Haley. She came in and we decided to brighten up her balayage. And, she had virgin hair and she wanted to brighten it up for summer. So we decided to, do a balayage, blah, 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 blah. I ended up using X, Y, and Z formula. If you wanted to book an appointment for this, I have a few openings open next month for new balayage clients. So you can see how I hit kind of both. I told the story. I talked to both hairstylists with the formula, but then I also talked to clients at the end, with like, if you want to book an appointment or something. So you could do it that way. Or I would say, hey clients, and I would talk about X, Y, and Z in one post, and it was more geared towards clients. And then I would do like a post geared specifically towards hairstylists, like, hey hairstylists, do you feel, burnout from working too much, and go on from there,
Right.
And so it slowly shifted. Did that help answer the question a little bit?
Yeah, definitely.
So if I go through your Instagram feed from the beginning, you'll see an evolution to
totally
where you are
yeah
today.
So you'll see, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, I think I started it in 2014. So you'll see when I was geared towards hair, definitely towards clients, building that behind the chair. Then when I really started to transition and that shift happening from clients to hairstylists, and then all the way into hairstylists.
It's like a diet, right? It's like,
Totally.
Right? It's like the evolution of, okay, I'm a little overweight. Now I go through a diet. I'm shedding off my clients. Now I'm free.
Yeah. Well, and so it definitely was one of those things where It happens over time. And the crazy thing was, and what I didn't think would ever happen, was when I stopped talking to clients and really gearing towards hairstylists, I still got clients asking me for appointments. And even to this day, even though I'm not taking clients, which we'll get to in a second,
Yeah.
I still get client inquiries all the time. Can you do my hair? I want to make an appointment with you. So like, no matter what you do, even if you're like not still trying to grow that business, you'll still get people that are wanting to book an appointment with you because they see the value you're offering maybe to the industry, or they see that you're so knowledgeable. They're like, I don't care. I want to go to them to get my hair done because they talk about these things. You're adding value to your posts, to your captions, to your photos. And yeah, they want to be a part of that.
I love that. Hey, so I have a challenge for anybody that's going to listen to the podcast. So when we finally, I'm going to totally forget about this. This is going to be awesome. So when we release Jamie's podcast, I want people to like screenshot her very, very first post on her
Yes.
Instagram
Yeah.
page, and then tag us and tag Jamie in it. And like I said, I'm going to forget about it, so it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's actually funny. If you scroll all the way down to my Instagram, I think in the caption, I edited it to say, hey, you've made it to the end. Comment below so I know that you made it all the way to the bottom.
That's awesome.
So comment. I think it's what it says, something like that down at the bottom. So yeah, I think it's like a logo, my old school logo, but yeah.
That'll be awesome. We'll have our stories filled with Jamie's old school logo.
Yes, I got to make sure it's a good one though.
No, you don't. What are you talking about?
So Don, do you have clients showing up at your house trying to get their hair done?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I have people that are like, where's your salon? Where do you work at? Especially with YouTube, it's crazy. People, they're like, I'll fly in from wherever to get my hair done by you. And again, it's because I'm adding that value and they see that and they're like, she knows what she's talking about, so.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. So how do we, what's the next transition? Right into B2B, right?
Right. Yeah. How did you get away from being behind the chair?
So that happened definitely over time. So let's go back, I guess. So I was in my Phoenix. I started my online course at that time, was promoting that, still working behind the chair. And I decided to actually open up a bigger salon. And so I got a 600 square feet studio and it was just me. And I hired an assistant because my behind the chair business was growing so rapidly. It was like to the point where I was booked out months in advance. I needed to take on new bring on an assistant so I could bring on new clients. So that was rapidly growing. And I had no thoughts or desire to get rid of my clientele. So I was in that studio for 2 years with an assistant, working my butt off, still trying to grow my clientele. And I wasn't really like actively trying to grow it. Again, like I was mentioning, people would just still reach out to me and want to get appointments with me. And it was just one of those things where I was trying to grow my online business with the online course and try to grow even in-person speaking engagements and the, behind the chair. And then I also have a retreat that I do for hairstylists. It's like a business retreat with a partner. And so I had a lot of things going on. So actually earlier this year, I started working with a husband and wife business coach, people that I've looked up to for years. And I did like an intensive 90-day, like working with them. And so when I started working with them, they basically looked at all of my business and they were like, you have 6 different businesses. And I was like, what? And that was like mind blowing to me, but it was true. I had 6 different things that I was running. And the thing that I kept telling them was, I don't feel like I'm giving 100% anywhere. Like I wasn't giving 100% to my clients. I wasn't giving 100% to my students. I wasn't giving 100% to my husband or to myself. And nothing was getting 100% of me. And it was because I had too many things. I didn't have the capacity to give any more. And so it was at the point where I was obviously stressed out. I was, not able to perform. I had no capacity to take on things. I mean, I would get a negative comment or I would get an email with a question and I just couldn't even answer it because I just had no more to give. And so I wasn't showing up the way that I needed to, especially for my students. And so basically they were like, honestly, we want you to break it down to one business, but if you need to get rid of some businesses, that's okay. And so, they recommended a book to me called The Pumpkin Plan, which I highly, highly, highly recommend, especially if you guys are a stylist. It's amazing. It talks not only just about even like in-person salon, like it's not a salon business, but it's like a business book, but it would talk about how to get rid of like those clients that are not your dream clients. But basically the premise of the book is you want to narrow everything down to grow your big pumpkin. And so you want to pour all your time, all your energy, all your love into growing a big pumpkin. And a lot of times, like for me, I had 6 different pumpkins. And you can't physically sustain 6 pumpkins. They'll never be big pumpkins. They're going to be average sized pumpkins, and people don't want to come see the average sized pumpkins. People flock to come see the massive, big ass pumpkin. And so they want to come see the huge pumpkin. And so what you have to do is you have to cut off the other pumpkins off the vine so that your nutrients, so that your time, so that you can be like putting everything into this pumpkin. And so highly recommend the book. It's a really great one. It's by Mike Michalowicz, The Pumpkin Plan. But anyways, so they were like, hey, you got to cut off some pumpkins. And I was like, okay. And obviously when you're growing these pumpkins, you're happy about them. You poured time and energy into them. You don't want to see a pumpkin just die. Like that sucks, right? Mm-hmm. So it was a hard decision. But ultimately I decided to give up my clientele behind the chair. And it wasn't something that was easy at all. There was definitely a lot of tears shed. I feel like I was cutting off a limb. But at the end of the day, I knew that it was my calling to help more hairstylists grow their businesses, and working behind the chair wasn't helping me achieve that. More hairstylists weren't growing their businesses because I was doing gray touch-ups and doing balayages. You know, that didn't really feed into that goal.
You
and
are
so
way beyond your years.
I mean, that's crazy.
I am blown away just by the maturity, by the drive. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're way beyond.
I just like it seems to me to cut away like those proverbial pumpkins on the vine, right? Like doing hair is easily generated money. You know, totally. So that's really what you're cutting away, right? So like whatever her next path is, that's a lot of income that she's gonna have to make out. Because imagine Southern California, she's booked out 2 or 3 months in advance. Like she had a nice income that she was cutting away. Like how'd you swallow that, or more importantly, how did Mark swallow that?
That's so funny that you bring him up, because he was the one that was like, are we going to be able to do this? Like, I don't know. And I was like, I feel it in my gut. Like, I feel like this is the right decision. And ultimately, like behind the scenes of our business, the salon brought in a lot of income, but the expenses are so much, just the overhead of rent and products. I mean, you guys know color costs a lot of money. So that kind of stuff, just the overhead was so much. So our revenue was a lot, but the expenses were also a lot. So the take home wasn't as much. And the online business does really well for me. And it was one of those things where if I wanted to grow one of the businesses, I had to pick and choose. And the online business and the online course has a lot more potential versus me working behind the chair. And another thing that I realized was, you know, I was trading time for money. And so being in the salon, I had to physically be there. I had to, mentally be there. I had to, work a lot. Like my body was getting tired. And even though I've only been in the hair industry for about 9 years, like I could feel it in my body. My back is sore. I'm mentally tired from talking to clients and stuff. And so having that time freedom wasn't going to be allowed in the salon versus now working from home and things like that, and really creating my own schedule and being able to kind of do my job from anywhere in the world that we want to is really cool. But yeah, my husband was not convinced in the beginning, but it's crazy because since then, so basically I made the decision to quit my job, quit working behind the chair in April. I had to basically feed, like I had clients booked out, so I couldn't just like quit. So I had to finish them out. I had to give them one last appointment and all the logistics behind that.
Did they all cry?
They all cried. They are still sad. Like I get messages all the time, like, are you sure you can't take me for one more appointment? I'm like, no, like I literally can't. But, it was one of those things where it was like, it needed to be done. So basically July 1st was my first official day, quitting my job, working for myself, I guess, even though I've worked for myself the whole time. And the crazy thing was my husband actually quit his job as well. He worked in insurance and he worked from home, but he was like in a corporate job where he still had to be clocked in. So he quit his job July 1st as well. And so basically July 1st, we were both like, all right, here we go. Like, we're working for the company. So my husband now works for me. And for what we do, he answers all my emails. He takes care of all the logistics behind the scenes with our students and all of the operations stuff. But yeah, it was a huge leap of faith. But I'm one of those people where I'm kind of like, I just jump and I hope that either something catches me or I land in water or something.
Like Thelma and Louise, like riding off the cliff, thinking there's a
I'm
net
like, let's
down
just
there to catch
go.
them.
And here's the thing, I tell him this all the time. I'm like, you have to just do it. I'm like, otherwise your fear and your like limiting mindset is just going to hold you back and you're never going to achieve what you want to. And I'm just like a leap and hope something happens kind of thing. And I'll figure it along the way. Like maybe I'll fly, maybe something will catch me. Maybe I'll fall in water. Maybe I'll fall really hard, but those are going to be lessons that I learn. I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to keep going. And I think those have been the things that have made me so successful is I just keep going. And
Jamie's she's bringing the homeschool home.
That's right.
Homeschooling what?
Fear is a liar.
Fear is a liar.
But it's true. I mean, there's people, I have students that are like, it didn't work. I'm ready to give up. And I'm like, okay, if you give up, you're never going to see the success on the other side. You have to keep going. You can't give up. And maybe you need to pivot along the way. Maybe things need to change and that's okay. Things have pivoted in my life. I mean, giving up my clientele was not something that I thought was going to happen, but I'm better for it. And I kept going and I just didn't give up. You got to pick yourself up, right?
That's the grind, man.
For sure. You got to keep going. So
that's awesome.
That's like my biggest advice is like, don't quit, just keep going, keep at it. And you're going to see success eventually,
That's awesome. I love that advice. Okay. So, to be 100% clear and frank and whatever. So, we met Jamie in LA. I thought we got along pretty well. I thought that maybe you didn't. I don't know. It happens.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know about that. But anyway, so I'm reading one of her posts, and she wrote something that we've actually talked about a couple of times on the podcast. And I called it. I on the podcast I've called it like feeling like a fraud. And Jamie used much more eloquent words, and she called it like impostor syndrome. So her post was about the first time that she went to teach a class and how she felt like a fraud or felt like an imposter in that room. So. I read the post and then I reached out to her within seconds and I go, Jamie, we need to talk about this because I think so many of us, and this is a great segue because, part of that grind is also being in that position, right? Like feeling like a fraud or feeling like you're an imposter in that room. So,
well, especially anytime we do something new or try something new or, moving on to the next phase, you're going to feel that way because you don't know. Or you don't necessarily think like we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, we felt that way at the in LA. I think it's a great opportunity to share that light with a lot of people that might be struggling with that.
Right, and like if that's part of the grind.
Yeah,
right. That's part of the grind, and if you feel that, no worries. Everybody's felt that.
Yeah,
So, so Jamie, kind of pick up on that post and why you wrote it, and well, first off, what motivated you to write it a couple years later, and then what that post meant to you.
Yeah, so it's funny because it's one of those things where I've been wanting to share a little bit more of my story and the not so pretty parts of it. I think with Instagram, so many people just share the beautiful highlight reel and like, look at where I am. And it's like, okay, well, there was a lot of bumpy road that got you there. And what I've really found with my audience is the things that when I share, the more vulnerable posts or the times that I failed or the times that I didn't feel so confident, those are the ones that resonate because I'm a human being, just like everybody else. And so basically I did a post, talking about the first time I ever taught a class. And again, this is early on in the days of my education. And like I had mentioned, I didn't really want to teach balayage because everybody else was teaching balayage. And so that's when I transitioned into doing business. But early on in those days, when I was figuring out what I wanted to do, I had a salon owner who lived in Merced, California, which is the middle of nowhere, really, of California. It's like cow country. And if you didn't realize, there are cows here in California. We do have that. It's like in the middle of California. So she reaches out to me and she's like, hey, I'd love to have you come teach a balayage class. I love your work. I think that you'd be great. I'd love to have you come teach a class at my salon. And so I was like, okay, like, I don't know. But I was like, no, like this could be a good, experiment, see if I want to do that more, blah, blah, blah. So I say yes. And the one reason why I said yes, little side note, was I found out, because originally I was just going to drive. It's like 6 hours from us. But then I found out that there is a private jet that flies from LAX to Merced for $120 round trip. And it's like a little 8-person private jet. And I was like, okay, yeah, I will fly a private jet up to Merced. And I'm like, that's going to look super cool on Instagram. So anyway, side note, that was kind of one of the reasons why I was like, well, that's easy to get there. So flew on a private jet to my first class.
Cool.
So it felt super baller, right? And if that didn't give me the confidence enough, flying in on a private jet, like, I don't know what could have. But so I get up there the night before, I bring my assistant. And at this point, I had just opened my salon. So the class was in early November. I had opened my salon October 1st. So just reeling from this huge salon, huge build out, burnout from that, dealing with my clients. I had just hired a new assistant. So learning, and I had never had an assistant before. So like all the, new things that come along with that. So I was already feeling like not very confident, not very like high on the ladder at that point. So I asked my new assistant, I'm like, hey, can you come to this class with me? We're going to fly in a private jet. Like, are you cool? She's like, yeah, totally. So we get there the night before and I am just like overcome with anxiety. Like I couldn't sleep. I felt so crappy that night. And I was just like, how am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to show up? Like, what if my balayage technique sucks? Like, what if nobody learns from it? Like, and we had a hands-on portion. I was like, what if nobody else can do it? Like, what if this is just my technique that works for me? Like, what if it's spotty? What if the toner doesn't work? Like, God forbid, like what if the model's hair fries off? Like, I don't know, like that could happen, And so I was so freaked out. So I get to the class, I'm super nervous. I set up, and I think there was like maybe 10 people in the class and I was just so nervous, but I got through the class. We did it. People learned things. I had them fill out like feedback forms at the end and nobody gave me bad feedback. So that was good. But it was one of those things where I totally felt like a fraud. Like I was like, I'm not good enough to teach this. Like no one is gonna, what if they don't like it? What if they realize that I'm not a real educator? What if they figure out that this isn't what I do? And I'm really thankful for that experience. I learned that I don't really want to teach in salon classes, nor do I want to drag around doll heads and teach balayage. So that was something I learned. But it really helped me realize that like, no, you are an educator. People did learn something from you. And one thing that I think I took away from that class and just something that I use throughout all of my experiences now is when you show up and if you impact even just one person, you can make a difference in their life. And that's a huge thing of like the big fear that holds us back is like, what if nobody likes it or what if, right? And if you kind of can take that, turn that thought off and just think about that one person that you can change or that one light bulb moment. And
my good friend Jen Plank says that, right? This message might not be for everybody, but
right.
It's for somebody.
Totally. And, think about it, that one person could go home and have this amazing technique, or that one person could go home. Like maybe you feel like a fraud behind the chair and you feel like I'm not really that good, or my blonde highlights aren't that amazing or whatever. But like, maybe you impacted your client in a different way. Maybe you impacted them by just being there and listening to them, or maybe it's the best hair color they've ever had and you impacted just that one person. So by showing up, turning off those thoughts of what if, and just trying to impact one person, that will really help your imposter syndrome go away, because it makes it more like reality,
I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, early on when we were, and you can even hear it in some of our early podcasts, I certainly got stuck on, feeling like a professional broadcaster, we're not, and actually what happened with us is that after a few months of doing it, I kind of threw my hands up and was like, dude, I'm not a professional broadcaster. I mean, a professional broadcaster. I'm going to mess words up. And then I just like, you know what? That's who we are. You know what I mean? That's who we are. And I removed the ums, the fear of the ums. I'm like, we'll
Yeah,
just leave the ums. It sounds like conversation anyways.
totally.
So
You're still an imposter, man. Come on.
in your eyes, I'll always be an imposter, sir. But yeah, it certainly, and like we even said just a few months ago in LA, we certainly felt we had mixed feelings about it. I'm speaking for Tony now, but it's like we're there and we're like,
You usually do.
Yep, exactly. So we did feel like the room overwhelmed us, but at the same time, like we've only been doing this for 10 months at that point, and we're like, this is pretty rad. Like the podcast
Totally.
got us to this modern salon event, 10 months into our journey.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that I you certainly bring up a few times on some of your posts, as you refer to your life as a journey, and I think that
Oh yeah.
I think we need to double down on that. That the journey probably never ends until you die, but be on the journey as opposed to looking for results all the time.
Yeah. And I think that's like one thing is so many like business self-help things are what's your goal, right? And I talk about goals. There's definitely goals that I want to hit, but sometimes on your way to that goal, on your journey, things change or, things need to pivot in order for you to hit a different goal. And so for me, I actually don't even like writing out yearly goals because who knows what's going to happen. Like if I had written down yearly goals this year, dude, I would have been totally screwed because things changed so much this year, so much for the better. I'm so thankful for it. But 6 months into my journey this year, things pivoted. And I didn't know that was going to happen at the early part of this year, but it's totally a journey. And yeah, I even say, like, I don't tell people like, thanks for following me. I'm like, thanks for following along my journey. And I hope that it helps you with yours too. Like, I just want to show up, try to act as much like a real person because I am a real person, no matter what the number is next to my name, or how many people take selfies with me at shows. Like I'm still a real human being, just like you are. And I want to show up as much as I can in that way.
Beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Earlier you mentioned, we're going to change gears just a little bit. You brought up the retreat that you started. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So
How did that come about everything? I'm sorry.
Totally. Yeah. So I have a friend, her name's Piper, and she was doing
Greatest name ever, by the way.
Piper. Yeah. She's so sweet. So she basically was doing these monthly meetups for hairstylists and makeup artists called Blend gatherings. And I went to her very first one because originally I had kind of thought like maybe I should do something like that, like free meetups for hairstylists, and she was doing it. So I was like, hey, I'm going to go support her because she's already doing it. That's awesome. So I went to the first one, and her and I had kind of known each other through a lot of different friends like in the photography industry. And so I was like, hey, we should get lunch after and blah, blah, blah. So her and I are super like-minded, and she was like, I kind of want to do like, I don't know, some sort of retreat for makeup artists. And I was like, I really want to do a retreat for hairstylists. And I was like, why don't we do it together? And so we just started talking and it just kind of came about. But we decided to do a retreat that's business oriented. So no techniques involved, all business for hair and makeup artists. And now it's transitioned. It's definitely more hairstylists just because of the audience that I have. A lot of hairstylists want to come. So we've done 2 retreats, which we did one earlier in February this year and then one just in October. And we're on the way to planning our 3rd one. And it's just blown our minds. It's been so cool. We've been able to meet some rad people. And yeah, so we have speakers that come. We've had some big names. We had like Exo Stylists, so Ash Fortis. We've had Dawn Bradley. We had Brianna Cisneros. Oh my gosh, just tons of amazing people be speakers. But then we've also had such amazing attendees, and that's been just so cool. And we're big on the relationship thing. So we want people to not just come to the retreat to change their business, but really to walk away with a new accountability partner or a new friend or a new like sister, So yeah, it's been really, really cool.
I love kind of what's going on in the industry right now. There's there's a few other retreats out there. I know Elizabeth Faye has her great retreat as well. And I wish there was 1,000 retreats for hairdressers because honestly, you can only, or you, to be effective, it has to be a small number anyways. What if it's, 30 hairstylists, and, I think Elizabeth, she like kind of like when she does her Utah retreat, I think that's like 30 to 40 hairdressers. So, I mean, there's so many more than 30 or 40 or 80 people, I kind of wish that there was retreats everywhere, because I really, really like that trend in the industry, and how it's not all about the hair. It's not even all about the business, but it's about the relationships, and it's not just an online relationship, but it's actually a personal face-to-face relationship. So, you know, actually, I kind of want to attend one just to kind of see what it's all about. But I really dig the idea in the self-help and the self wealth.
I'll be your
Yeah.
accountability buddy.
Accountability buddy forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's actually another one that I just saw pop up called Hair Camp or something. And they are, so shout out to them. I don't even know who runs it, but I think it's more like technique based, but that's so cool. Like different people want different things. And like Elizabeth and I, we're actually good friends, and it's cool. I've been able to watch her journey of her retreats, and theirs is just different than ours. And that's what's so cool. Like there's different retreats for different types of people, for different way that people learn. And I think it's awesome. So yeah, I think it's a cool trend. I think we'll see it popping up a lot more, which is exciting, like,
well, it's
Piper
exciting.
and I, yeah.
Until the brands get involved, like once the brands get involved, we kind of need. I did a retreat I don't know. We'll call it a retreat. We didn't call it a retreat at the time, but years ago, there's this New York colorist, and he's been a colorist for 100 years in our industry, and his name is Tom Dispenza. And what he did is he did a class for probably about 60 hairstylists, but he did it in Mexico. So
cool.
So we all went down to Cancun, and we got a hotel together, and he had this big block room. And then, every day until like 1 or 2 o'clock, we were in class, and then we got the rest of the afternoon off to go and play. And then he started a little bit later to 10 a.m. because he knew that hairdressers going out to play weren't going to make early call time.
Yeah.
but it was a great class, and it was just super intense, like intensive, like color theory training, and it was really great. Again, it wasn't a retreat, but that's kind of how I see this kind of stuff evolving. Bringing a lot of people in a controlled audience.
Yeah, totally. And like Piper and I, we feel like, there's so much, like we don't live in a scarcity mindset. We're like, here's the thing, there's so much to go around. Like you said, there's so many hairstylists out there, and we are just so excited to see that trend in the industry. Like we feel like we are one of the first ones, but we're excited to see what else comes from that, and who else like creates their own retreat, which is so cool. So yeah, we're 100% supportive of that.
I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
How can somebody find the retreat?
Yeah. What's it called, by the way?
So it's called Ember Retreat. So we're on Instagram. It's ember.retreat on Instagram, or just go to emberretreat.com.
And that's EMBER.
Yes. Ember,
Does
like
it
a spark
open
and
to all
a flame.
genders?
Yeah,
So ours is geared towards women. But yeah, I know. But I think this hair camp one is everybody. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We've talked about doing like conferences and stuff too, like that are a little bit shorter. So yeah, we're playing with the idea. We definitely have had, different ideas come up. So stay tuned. We might, we'll let you know for sure.
Well, certainly you can jump on it and talk about it on the podcast anytime.
Totally.
Maybe we should get her and Piper together to talk about it.
Ooh, yeah, we would love that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We can talk
Good
about
call.
that. Yeah. So we'll bring her and Piper together, and they can kind of talk about how the evolution of it. I like that.
Yeah.
And would you like to? Can we have you back on about like little small talk business?
Totally.
Podcast?
Yeah. That's like, I love doing that kind of stuff. So this is my jam.
Jam. That's awesome. And then so your online classes, is it a hashtag #OHotGram?
So it's called OHotGram. That's just the name of the program. So we only open the doors a couple times a year. So right now the doors are closed, but we'll be opening them in probably early February or March. So if you want to get,
is OHotGram, is that your online class?
That's my online course. Yeah.
It's an online course.
Yeah. And basically what it is it's how to utilize Instagram as a hairstylist to grow your business. So it's step by step, everything you need to know. And kind of going back to what I was talking about really earlier is how do you create content that speaks to those dream clients, and then converting those clients into actual paying clients behind the chair. But it's great for if you're wanting to grow your business as a hairstylist behind the chair, or if you're wanting to grow kind of your impact in the industry and become more of an educator or an influencer. So it really works. And basically I share everything that I've ever learned about Instagram from growing my clientele now into being an influencer, and being, an educator. So any way you want to grow your business in the hair industry, it's definitely what you want to learn. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
I'm blown away by this young lady.
Well, thank you.
Totally. I mean,
So-
like I said earlier, she's beyond her years, and I'm totally impressed by you, and definitely a fan.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
definitely.
Oh, you guys are
In her
awesome.
presence, I feel like I'm suffering with my imposter syndrome.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, it's so funny because right before you guys had me on here, I was like, what am I even going to say? Like, totally was feeling imposter syndrome this morning. So if that makes you feel better, like I was feeling it this morning too.
We're a room full of frauds right now.
Right? I know.
Also,
You shouldn't even be up here.
That's incredible. So, so listen, I'm going to take us out because I think that I think we have a lot to talk about, but I think we'll pick up other podcasts for doing that. So,
100%.
Cool.
so I'm just really excited. So, Miss Jamie Dana, hairstylist, or at Jamie Dana hairstylist, thank you very, very much for joining us on your day off.
Thank you so much for having me. This was like so fun. I felt like it was a real conversation and just really easy going. So I love that.
Hey, so there it is. Hey, this is a message that we've been trying to bring, I don't know, for the last couple months, actually since we started the podcast. Hey, so if you like the podcast or if you find that it's useful, please leave us a review, a 5-star review on iTunes. Leave us a rating and a review.
But if you don't like it, forget about it.
Yeah, totally forget about this message. We also want to thank Sarah and Blaine from Pretty Gritty. Sarah and Blaine, they are a band out of Portland, Oregon, and we just want to thank them very much for allowing us to use their song, Pleased to Meet You, on our podcast. That's cool. I think you can find, actually you can find their music on iTunes.
Peace and hair grease.